September 4th meeting of the Finance Committee. I now call this meeting to order. Present here this evening are Councillors Walsh, Boschman, and Cruz, and myself, President Zarella. I will be chairing in Chairman Di Natale's absence. We have one item on the agenda this evening, 16024, which is a loan order for the Meeting House, Gatehouse, and Mare Meadow Pump Station, the Main Street Water Main Replacement Project, and the Regional Water Treatment Plant Roof Replacement. If no one on the committee objects, I will waive the full reading of the loan order. And you can let us know what we're dealing with here.
Good evening. So this is a loan order to borrow up to $12.7 million for, well, it's actually 4 projects when you count Meeting House and Mare Meadow separately, but I'll go over each one briefly. The Main Street project, we do have ARPA funds for, but we've expanded what we're going to do to include the upper common area all the way down to Lunenburg and Summer Street. So we're going to be replacing 2 mains. There's mains around the upper common and the Boulder. Like I said, 2 mains all the way down Main Street, and we're going to replace all the lines to each of the buildings. Where some building may need fire protection, we're going to make sure that they do have fire protection available to them. We've reached out to property owners, but the ARPA money is just not enough to meet the cost of the whole project. So we'd like to make sure that we do get everything done, so when it is repaved, that from one end to the other is done correctly. There's going to be a separation project that's also in this area coming up, and we're going to be in there ahead of them. So, hopefully avoid any problems with them with the older main that's in the street. The water mains on Main Street are about 1880, 1890. They're actually pretty good cast iron, but it's the joints, the valves, and all the fittings that, are likely to fail in the future. So, and of course, it's all tuberculated too. It isn't line ductile iron pipe like we install nowadays. The other projects are the Meeting House, Gatehouse, and the Mare Meadow Pump Station. That's about $4.4 million between the 2 of them. The Meeting House, Gatehouse is the gatehouse just before the Regional Water Treatment Plant at Westminster, and is really our most important gatehouse. Yep. That's approaching 120, 130 years of age, and we've done work over the years. There's traveling screens in there that remove debris that may be in the water, sticks or anything floating around. But we're at a point now that the gatehouse needs to be totally rehabbed. Inside, the traveling screen that's attached in a channel that's like 20, 25 feet deep inside there, and the walls need to be redone. We're going to have to make a cofferdam bypass pump at the building, so we can still keep water coming to the city. So that's how important it is. We can't just shut it off. Redo the building itself, new traveling screens, just rehab everything. Not only do we need to do this, it's also on our list that DEP has that we have to have complete by the end of next year. So it's basically mandated by DEP. The Mare Meadow Pump Station, Mare Meadow Reservoir, I'm not sure if anybody's been out South Street heading toward Hubbardston, but it's the reservoir that's on both sides of the road. It's like a causeway that goes through the middle. And down at the far end of it, there's a dam, and then there's a pump station below that. That's about 50s era equipment and pumps. It's very inefficient. And the electrical panels and things like that, and the building itself just needs to be completely redone. So we're going to bid that this winter and do that next spring as a separate project. That pump station pumps up into the Meeting House Reservoir, which then flows down into the regional plant for treatment. So it is our largest reservoir, and there's no doubt it's our most important reservoir because it has great recharge with water. We have reservoirs in the northern watershed. Once they drain down the summer months, they may not recharge till over the winter months. Meeting House, we draw down a couple feet, just utilizing it, but just seems to maintain its level. We really don't get down that far. And like I said, it is our most important because it is our largest, and the water quality in there is great. We've actually had the state tell us that it's better than the water quality in Quabbin Reservoir. So, but like I said, the Meeting House Reservoir, where that Meeting House Gatehouse is, that water is just not enough to meet the demands of the city. We're pumping all summer long from Mare Meadow in a Meeting House, so we need to make sure that that pump station is good for the next 50 years. So we want to completely redo it over. So, and also make it more efficient as far as pumping. The last item is the regional water treatment plant. That's approaching 25 plus years. We've done a bunch of repairs to the roof itself. And also, when it was assessed recently, when we were developing the plans and specifications for replacing the roof, we discovered that one of the issues for water getting in the building is one of the concrete block walls needs to be redone. Some water is getting into those and has caused some damage, so we need to remove that and then replace it. Just doing the roof isn't going to stop the water from getting in, unfortunately, so there's a bit more work involved there. But that is also on a list from Mass DEP. I mean, we need to do it anyway to protect the facility and upkeep it, but they've noted that the roof is starting to deteriorate, and that the repairs just aren't sufficient anymore, so they want us to replace the roof. So, which makes sense when it's approaching that age anyway. So, so that basically the aggregate of that is $12.7 million. This money is dedicated to those respective projects. So of course, without coming back to city council, I can't say I'm going to, just use it over there. So, it's dedicated to those projects. I don't want to reduce the amount now. I don't think we're going to need all this money because some of the prices have come in a bit more favorable than we thought. But things can go wrong too. So, of course, if we don't spend that much, we won't borrow it, because that's what it's for, is that's those specific projects. So that's nothing that can be reallocated without the council knowing. So so I'd like to just stick with the 12.7 million, and then it does come in less each of them, as seems to be the case, that I'll be back in to rescind the loan, which I probably would have anyway regardless, because we always build a little bit extra contingency just in case, so that I'm not running in last minute and say, hey, we just found this issue, whatever that's going to cost an extra $100,000, and I borrowed to the penny on it, and we need another $100,000. Doesn't make sense. So we just want to be able to tackle that and not have any delays. So I'll be welcome. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Brochman.
John, you're telling me that the water mains are going to start from the upper common? Whereabouts on the upper common, right around in front of the church?
Yeah, all around the church.
All the way around?
In front of the church, yep.
Now, my question to you, the city is pushing for the redevelopment on Main Street. Are we going to make the pipes big enough to handle what they're anticipating down there?
Yeah, we actually, they're sized adequately now, but the new mains won't be tuberculated. So yeah, they're absolutely, we figured that all in. We have both the high system, low system mains. So we can basically, unless they're going to build a 30-story building, which wouldn't be the case for any water system, but we should be able to meet the demands for anything. And like I said, we've been reaching out multiple times to property owners, asking what their plans are and what they might need for a fire connection. They're all connected for domestic supply, but it's, you need to tell us, you're going to need a 4-inch or a 6-inch or something like that. So we've been trying to work closely. A lot of them do already have some, some fire protection in there, but yes, we're going to have whatever they need for the buildings down there, other than some, very large building.
And you're saying this project's going to start when, next year?
We actually already got the bids back for Main Street, and where our plan is to do some of the valve work this year on Main Street. There's a lot of side streets that the valves are old, they're 100 and something years old. So we need to replace those to make sure that we have control on Main Street itself, and also to install temporary water to supply everything. So we'll actually start this year so that when next spring rolls around, they can jump right into getting the temporary water set up and start putting in water main, and they're not doing all these little ends on the side streets to make everything, work. So.
And my final question. These property owners that you're reaching out to, if some don't respond, and we do the work, but let's just say the guy across the street doesn't respond to you.
Yeah.
is he gonna be allowed to dig into the road after, because he wants to build up his place and he's doing more, and the pipe's not the right size? Are we gonna say, no, you gotta wait 5 years?
Well, they might have to. I mean, that'd be up to the mayor and the public works director, but, you know, it's going to be some time before we pave the whole street, because they still got to do a separation project
Yeah,
after
I
us.
understand that.
So they might have some time to say, hey, you know, a year later, you know, before we do actually do the final paving, that, you know, they might be able to tie in. I'm hoping that, I mean, we're sending out another set of letters. We sent multiple letters, and, you know, some of them, of course, respond right away. We're going into the buildings and looking at what they got, you know, so I'm hoping we got all our bases covered. I don't know what else we could do. You know, those that haven't responded, we tried calling if we have a number, you know, on their account or something like that. So I think we pretty much touched base with everybody. And anybody that, you know, as the main's going in before the services go in, hopefully anybody that may have fell through the cracks will reach out then. So, but they'll still have some time afterwards. But we just as soon get it all done at you know, once, so we don't have an issue. But
Yeah.
like I said, they're going through with the separation project, so, you know, they'll have some time before the final paving gets done after we're out of there.
All right. Are we gonna have to borrow, can we afford this? That's my next, I should ask the treasurer that question. Can we afford that?
Well, the rates, this is in line with what we were planning with the rate study, so as far as borrowing, we're actually behind a little bit because we were going to borrow for a project last year, so we're borrowing later, so it's actually better, more advantageous as far as our affordability of it, but it's all fits in within the you know, the amounts that we were planning on borrowing as part of the rate study and our capital improvement plan that was plugged into that rate study for financing, so.
And what, are we getting a special rate? Like, I remember one time you said we get a real good rate from the state. Are we borrowing through the state where you get that good rate?
We've applied for SRF funding, but the issue with PFAS across the state has eaten up all that financing. So we applied twice for Mare Meadow and Meeting House and didn't make the cut either time. So all the money is being eaten up by those projects, you know, by systems that need to install treatment for PFAS. So I don't see that. You know, I wish we could. We applied for it, but it's not feasible. A water main project is not getting funded through SRF. It just isn't. I mean, just because of all the issues with the treatment for those contaminants.
All right. I guess that'd be it. A year before to my fellow council.
Councilor Walsh?
Thank you. John, can you just give your best estimate? I realize that these projects sometimes, you know, it's difficult to say, you know, how long it's going to take. But can you give a best estimate? You said you're going to start Main Street this year. How long do you think that each project, when will they start and about how long will they?
Of course, like I said, Main Street will start this year just from some smaller work on the side streets and some valving, and then they'll be able to start as early as possible in the spring. Unfortunately, with the water main project, we have to provide temporary water, so we can't install that on sidewalks and down the streets until the temperatures warm up enough so they're not freezing at night. But we're hoping we might be able to get it done by the end of next calendar year. Worst case, it would take into the next spring or whatever, but we're hoping to get it done by then. So.
Okay. And what about the Gatehouse in Mare Meadow?
Meeting House, we anticipate on having that done by next spring before the next high demand period. We'd like to get it done over the winter months. We already went out to bid for the contract, and it's, you know, we're at that point where we know what the price is, and beginning the process of you know, insurance and bonds from the contractor and things like that. So, so we're right on track. Mare Meadow, we're going to bid over the winter months, and we hope to have that done probably by the end of next summer or end of the fall. So, the regional roof has actually been bid as well. I'm ready to go on that. We're, you know, getting all the contracts set and stuff, just pending this authorization. And we want to get that roof done before the winter months. So, yeah, so it's all happening fairly quickly, actually.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Councilor Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of questions. I'm glad you brought up PFAS and the DEP. With this new work, how does this bring us in line with DEP standards in regards to PFAS? And it's just such a hot button issue, and you're hearing more and more about it in the groundwater and all.
Yeah, it's not going to affect things either way. We do have PFAS in our drinking water. Unfortunately, it's it is there. It's at very low levels. We have been, EPA has new limits coming out in 5 years. Well, it's a couple of months less because they, authorize them or set them out in the spring or whatever we have to meet. So we have to meet, we have to do testing for the next couple of years and then have to have treatment in place in 5 years. So we're below the limits that they're requiring us to meet in 5 years, and hopefully we'll continue to be that way. But I mean, pretty much any water body in Massachusetts has PFAS, even the most pristine ones. I mean, it falls in every raindrop that comes from the sky. I mean, it's just there everywhere. I mean, it's in the Arctic, it's in the Antarctic, and any place where you might have, houses, septic systems or roads, you're going to find it. And we found in our reservoirs, it's not something that's a specific source. It's just what's the background there, The levels they have, like for one of the contaminants is 4 parts per trillion. We're generally in like the 3.3 parts per trillion, just under. We did have one over 4 earlier this year, but the next set of sampling went below the 4. The interesting thing about all this is that when we have a result of 3.3 parts per trillion, it's estimated. It could be anywhere from 0.1 to the 3.3. The analytical technology just isn't there to test down to that level right now, and I think that's one of the reasons that EPA pushed it out for 5 years, because at some point we will be certain that if it's 2.3, that's what it is, or if it's 2.9 parts per trillion, that it will be there. That's there. They know when you go above 4, that's basically the detection limit. It's there, and they know between 0 and 4 if it's detected, it's someplace in that range, but they don't know the exact amount with the level of technology right now. So,
I see.
Sorry for the long answer.
No, I
but-
appreciate your thoroughness.
Yeah, it's something we're definitely keep an eye on. We're very concerned because it could add a lot, and when we did the rate study, we weren't sure where US EPA was going with the regulations. The state of Massachusetts had stricter regulations than EPA. We were way below what they have, which is 20 parts per trillion. Massachusetts already instituted something that was much stricter than what the federal government, which was like 70, the US EPA. So then they went from 70 down to 4. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's everywhere, And I can reassure people though that, even though it's in our water, your exposure to PFAS is not the water; it's everything else. It's in microwave popcorn, it's in coffee cups, it's in pizza boxes. At the supermarket, they have those, I call them meat diapers, that they put underneath to soak up the stuff from the meat. Those have it. It's in your nonstick pans, it's in your stain-resistant clothing, Gore-Tex, your carpets, it's in everything. If people are getting exposure to PFAS, it's from within their homes and, from what they consume. So the water is just not even a factor. If we had higher levels, I might say so, but people should not be concerned whatsoever that, they'd probably be better off not drinking a coffee from, some places every day. I don't know.
Right.
Hate to say that, but that's the truth,
Right.
I just don't think people realize where it is, what it is in everything, so.
And because my concern is if we're going to go in there and spend these millions, and we want to make sure that when this new regulation comes out in 5 years, we're still below that. We don't have to come back and take on another loan and do it again standard.
Everything we're doing now is not going to affect that down the road whatsoever. So, we just need to be vigilant about, keeping an eye on what the levels are and, making sure that, there's nothing going on in our watersheds that would allow it to get in there. So we can treat for it, but it's very expensive, especially at lower levels. I mean, there's granular activated carbon, there's resin beds and things that people are using, and it will remove it, but it's not a cheap proposition. It's probably, $10 to $15 million additional cost to construct it, and then there's the maintenance over time too, the operation maintenance. So, but yeah, I just want to assure people, it's like, yeah, unfortunately, it is in our water. It's in water everywhere, but it's the exposure and where, we all have it in our bodies just from, everything. So, been there for decades. We didn't even know about it till, 4 or 5 years ago. They had no way of testing for it. So I remember when we first started testing, it just threw out all the results all the time. Yeah, that lab didn't meet the standards. That lab didn't meet the standards, and it was kind of crazy in the beginning because we were doing all this testing and spending money, and that was the EPA required, and they couldn't even analyze it at that level. So now they're down to where they can get to definitely at 4, and anything below it's from 0 to 4. It's there, but we don't know whether it's 0.1 or 3.3.
Right.
So
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Did you?
I'm all set, thank you.
Oh, you.
One more question. How much money are we getting from the American Rescue Act for this project?
There's $5 million in that right now. So, and the total project's cost right now is about $9 million. So I think we may not. Our bids came in more favorable than we thought. So that's why I said we may have to not borrow the full $6 million for that portion of it. So.
And that's not counting the DPW, the wastewater service, right? Because we gave money for them too, right?
I think it all went to. I think it all went to the water mains on. I'm not sure. I don't think any went to there.
It all went to the water main.
Yeah, it all went to the water mains on
It all
Main.
went to water main?
Yeah, for Boulder and Main Street. So, and Boulder's actually coming in under. So, we may be in better shape than we thought. But I just don't want to count my chickens before they hatch because then I'll be back before it was like, hey, I reduced this and now I need it. But and that's why I emphasize it. I can't use this anyplace else. You know what I mean? It's like, just because, it's $6 million for Main Street is there. If we only end up needing 2 of it, that's all we're not going to borrow any more than that. So, and then we'll just rescind the rest later on. So.
So all of the servicing for this loan is covered under your enterprise fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I assumed, but wanted to double check. And I just also wanted to briefly comment, I think you raised a very good point, that all of us should kind of keep in mind when we think about any kind of pollutants or exposure or anything like that. Obviously, we want the cleanest water, the cleanest air, the cleanest everything we can get. But when we're considering these things, we need to consider them relative to other sources of exposure. Like you'll hear people say bananas are radioactive. Well, yeah, but you get more radiation from standing in front of a microwave than from eating a banana. Yeah. So if you're worried about radiation, you don't need to cut back on bananas. In the same way, like you said, yes, there's PFAS in our water. There's a lot more everywhere else around us. And this, by the way, is not a criticism, Councilor Cruz. I'm just making this comment generally because I think people have a tendency to learn facts in isolation from one another. And unless they hear them together, they don't necessarily always think of them together. And it can lead to some unnecessary worry on the part of people who are trying to stay healthy. Anyway.
And that's exactly the case. I don't want them to worry about that because there's other things they need to consider in their life overall that may reduce exposure.
Right.
Missy in our office loves microwave popcorn. She's loaded with it. Some of them. She doesn't want to hear that, but but that's the case, so.
Motion to approve 160-24.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and second. If there are no objections, we'll take this by unanimous consent. Seeing none, it is unanimously approved, and that concludes our business.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and second to adjourn. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned.